What's up, everybody? This is going to be a quick one. We're just going to go over some Zed announcements, quick stable review, and some things that I think new players are kind of overlooking when it comes to building up their stables. And so I just want to cover some things real quick. So first things first, if you haven't seen it, this morning the Zed team announced that they'll be doing $20,000 in free races every single day. So free races have been popping up like crazy. All classes. I believe the prizes on average for the class 1 races are $50, and then there's still like $10 and $15 free races in class 5. So the higher the class, the more money you're able to win. Also this weekend, there was a 500 ETH deal made for 16 Z1 nakamotos, so $1.7 million. That's absolutely crazy. So for all those people who keep on making those corny videos asking, or saying, is Zed dead? Is this the end? No, not even close. We're just starting. And so, for those who don't know, fatigue came out. The more you race a horse, the more fatigued it gets, the slower it gets. There's going to be some updates on that. But in the current environment, if you're at 70 fatigue or more, you can still lose points. That's going to be changing to 90, and then also the way that your horse interacts with fatigue, so the way it slows down and everything else. So when that updates, I'll be sure to let you know. Get Spooked is the only new horse still in the stable. At the end, we'll cover some of the horses that we sold, and we are up to 48 wins. I was trying to get to 50 wins before the stream, or before this recording, but it just wasn't happening. In the middle of a couple tournaments, so I'm kind of being more selective with what horses get run. And had to do a little bit of downclassing just because horses were getting into ranges of competition that I wasn't comfortable with. Wasn't confident that I'd be able to manage them. So we did take quite a bit of a hit. Racing Get Spooked back down to class 4. She was closing in on class 3. Heat Lightning hit class 3, had to bring her back down. And then Camille just does her things. She down classes automatically. So just real quick, one of the biggest things I think people are misunderstanding, especially newer or small stables. My stable's primarily Buterins, and I currently have 6 fillies and mares. And these numbers are based off of pretty much no advantages, right? So you're not breeding in stable, you're not breeding across stables if you own 2. This is just straight up, breeding cost. Because if you're new or a small stable, chances are you're not going to be doing all that fancy stuff to build, right? But I currently have 6 fillies or mares. If I'm breeding with Genesis Buterins, which right now there's really no point in breeding with non-Genesis, unless you're specifically breeding for, something very, very specific. That's going to cost you 0.036, and we priced Ethereum at 3,500 just because Ethereum has been up and down a lot. So that's at the time of this recording, Ethereum's really at like 34.5, but just in case there's an uptick, you can kind of plan against yourself. That's going to cost us $756 a month. I did have, a couple more fillies, and the 1 month it did cost me over $900 to breed. And before any of those fillies sold, I was pretty much priced out for the month. It was a struggle even to have funds to race. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. But I know, small stables were not really accounting into, okay, well, I have a $500 budget. I spend $400 on a filly or a mare, and then I can't afford to breed with Genesis, so I have to breed with Legendary. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. If I was to sell everything in the stable, we planned for Ethereum being at 3,400, just because, like I said, it has been, going up and down quite a bit. So these prices are all going to be based off of 3,400. And we pretty much based it off floor donkey colts, or just above floor donkey colts, because when you're figuring out your monthly cost for your stable function, right, how much money is it going to cost me to breed every single month, and how much money can I make, you always want to round against yourself just so you're covered. So we're going to assume we're only going to breed donkeys, and we're going to assume that they're all males. That'll give us a pull just over a quarter Ethereum. Based on the $3,400 and the current market value on these horses, which is crazy to think you can get a Legendary for 0.06. It's going to cost you $900, or you're gonna gain $982. That's a $226 profit, right? So if you're making $200 a month profit, thinking 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, I'd really look 6 months down the line. If you're making $200, what are you going to buy? What are you going to flip into? What are you going to sell so you can trade up? Maybe you only have legendaries and exclusives in your stable currently. How do you flip and trade up to get to a Genesis mare maybe? And one of the things for myself, if I go over to my stable, Fusion Light, who's my Genesis horse, she's my only Genesis female at the time. She's the only one producing legendaries, and she's actually part of my premium bloodline, where I'm not going to be selling off, her offspring. The only one that's maybe for sale is Mom Thought, and that's because that wasn't a deliberate horse. That's kind of me getting greedy, trying to snipe, and it biting me in the ass. So what I'm saying is, this legendary is off the table. I'm not selling this. I have breeding trees specifically built out for this horse and other horse combinations, and this one's just not for sale. So if I go into here and I subtract, what I'm making from my legendary, I'm only gonna make $20 profit, roughly. So if I'm only making $20 profit, it's gonna be really hard to grow a stable, right? So that's where you kind of have to know, like, when are you gonna trade up? When are you gonna do what? This also brings me to my next point. In the current environment of the game, if you're playing Buterin, and really if you're playing the Finny game, it is more beneficial to race your horse at least 4 races, especially if you're playing Flames in the Griffin and you don't win. It's more beneficial to race your horse and see what you have, and then sell it. And I'll show you examples of why this was. Because right now the unraced market for Buterins is dead. It's very flat. There's not a lot of people buying them. Now if you're playing the Zabo Nakamoto game, it's a little bit different. Those are premium horses. People are willing to pay a little bit more for the unraced, so that way they can scratch a lottery ticket. And on average, a Z2 legendary Nakamoto or a Z4 legendary Nakamoto is going to outperform a Z16 Buterin. It's just the way it is. So when a lot of these bigger stables are talking about selling unnamed, unraced, that works really good at the higher end of the game. But if you have a horse that pulls 3 flames but doesn't win in its first 3 races, chances are you're going to be able to get more than floor for it. And I was able to do that a couple times, and that really helped out. So I'll kind of go into those horses a little bit. But if you're a new stable or you're thinking about expanding your stable, this is kind of how I go through the process. So right now, if we're looking at legendary females, floor sitting at just over 0.06, so pretty cheap. And unless you're getting into the really low teens, you're going to see them be under 0.8 or 0.08. If we filter the legendaries to where we know we're getting some mixed blood in there, let's max this out at 13. I'm going to say 14 maybe for Zabo. You're automatically jumping up to a Z14 right here is 0.09. I'm willing to bet that one's going to have a Finny. Z13, it's probably a Finny if it's only that much. If you get into like a Z, I don't even see Z right here. Yeah, Z11, that's 125. Pretty sure I already looked at this horse earlier too. Yeah, so that's a Z2 Nakamoto Genesis and a Z9 Buterin. So Genesis Colts, they're really nice, but if you're a new stable, you can get them. But I really think early on the mares are going to be the most important things, because they're going to be able to grow your stable. I think 6 to 8 months down the line, we'll see Genesis, across the board, Finny, Buterin, Nakamoto, and Zabo. All their covers will be taken, because we're going to hit that supply and demand factor, where people are going to want to create legendaries, they're going to want to hold exclusives, hold elites, and the only way to do that's with Genesis. But I think if you're new, starting out, you got to get some decent females in, because no matter what happens in the game, you're always going to be able to breed into good blood, right? You're always going to be able to pay for a stud. you're not always going to have a good starting block with a mare. And I think, super long term, the stallions will start outperforming, but I think, we're still half a year away from that at least. That being said, Genesis will always hold value and increase in value as well because it can't be recreated. So if you're just going to buy a horse and kind of sit on it because you have the budget to do so, grab that Genesis, Colt and Stallion, throw it in the back of the stable. But I don't necessarily recommend breeding with it, especially early on, if you can afford to. And for me, I do almost no internal breeding when it comes to my horses, especially with trying to produce specific outcomes, just because I'm always going to be able to breed with myself. I don't know what the prices of a good stud are going to do in the future. And as we saw before the breeding correction, you could breed with the Nakamoto Genesis for $350, and everybody's like, oh, but you can snipe one for 75 or 100, so don't pay that. Well, now Z1, Z2 Nakamotos, Z1s you're looking at over 1,000, and Z2s are getting listed for like 750, and that's well above floor. Zabos, I believe, are $400 minimum to breed with now, so that floor is kicking up quite quick. So I would recommend, when you can, grab something like this that's got Nakamoto blood in it and kind of breed around that, see what happens. But I'm honestly not a big fan of pulling exclusives. I would much rather get a low Z, or I'm not a big fan of the legendaries. Would rather buy 2 or 3 low Z number exclusives and go from there. Because if we look at the exclusive floor, where are we? Uterine exclusive. Do I have this filtered? Yeah, I already have this filtered for low teens. So, where did it go? We want low. Price load high. Alright, yeah, so if we get like Z16 here, uterine exclusive mare, 0.059. Let's look up this horse and see what it has in it. So you got a Z10 Genesis and a Z6 and a Zabo Legend, right? So that's going to be double Zabo blood and then your Z10. His offspring's unraced, so you don't really know what his track record is, but that's a good starting block. Like, the possible outcome of this horse breeding into another Genesis and producing something good, I believe is better than like a Z18 legendary mare that has 2 Buterin parents. I'm a big fan of crossblood, crossblood breeding. Some of these you're going to find, have Nakamoto and Zabo in them. So you can get some really interesting combinations. It takes a little bit of research and a little bit of time. Or you can get really good bloodline mixes with finnies and stuff in there as well. But for the same price as, a legendary, especially a legendary that isn't just pure Buterin, you can buy 2 of these and give you 2 opportunities to get a better horse. And like right here, a Z13 exclusive mare at 0.75, like a Z13 exclusive, that's got to have some stuff in it there. So, and it has a Z10, yeah, right there. Z10 and a Z3 Genesis. It would cost you $400 to breed with this right here, right? That's not a $400 price. So to recreate that horse, if I was in the market for an exclusive female right now, I'd be snatching this up. But I'm not right now. I got some breeding deals lined up, and I'm paying a little bit of a premium for some of the studs that I really want, so I'm not going in after those right now. But another thing to look at too, I'm a really big fan of, if we look at, I didn't look at these prices yet. Yeah, so if you're going to go the legendary route, you might as well just go Finny, because you can get a legendary Finny, Z14, Z12 for almost the same prices like a Z11 Buterin, and then you can breed with a Finny and get an exclusive. And I think the difference between like a Buterin stud right now is like 136, and a Genesis Finny is like 170. So like if you're gonna spend a little bit more, you might as well shop around and get your Z11 Finny, just for shits and giggles. Like, let's see what just because I haven't looked yet. you're gonna pay 1.25. Yeah, if you're gonna pay 1.25, you can get, you know, Z13 exclusive Zabos. Like, I think that's better than a legendary veteran. Just perceived value wise, you know, a stacked Zabo bloodline, and if it's a Z13, it's been bred a few times, so I'm willing to bet that there's Nakamoto blood in there. That's just my guess. I like buying fillies, so it's, yeah, you just gotta shop around. Like I said, if you can afford, you know, if you're coming in with a 1/8 budget or close to that, and you can afford to play the Genesis game, go ahead. If you're not, though, really try to see what's underpriced. You know, being able to buy into a Zabo bloodline for 0.129, and then you can pick your stud. And when you have a big enough bag saved up, breed back into a Genesis, or into Zabos, you know, maybe produce an elite. But I really think, you know, people are missing out trying to buy, you know, the floor horse, when if you just step up 10% above floor, like, you're going to get so much better deals. Like, let's see here. So if we go 10%, we're looking at 1.3 almost. Yeah, so that jumps up immediately. But yeah, right here's a Z11 for 0.159, and like, that's half a Genesis Stallion, so kind of have to build your own idea what you're going to do. But like I said, playing a couple months out, and kind of keep these in mind, right? Like, alright, if I start with an exclusive veteran, and I buy the horse and I sell it, and then next month I do it again, now I can buy a second exclusive veteran. Now I'm producing 2 exclusives a month. So then in, you know, 4 months, now I can come in and grab this, you know, exclusive Zabo. You know, that's kind of what you gotta do. And like I said, with Finnies, like exclusive Finnies, I'm a big fan of these. This is what I started out, you know, the stable with, the budget stable. That'll be producing more episodes for here closer to the breeding time, which I believe is either 22nd or 24th. But I already looked at this one here, I believe. This is the one I looked at. This is a filly, so you have full control of the children. Zabo Legendary on one side, which is, you know, Z4 and Z3, and then this was two Finnies there. So like, you have double Zabo and double Finny blood, and a Z18 exclusive for 0.069. Why would you? In my opinion, why would you spend 0.069 on a legendary Z18 veteran when you can get this Finny? And when you breed a Finny Genesis exclusive, or, you know, when you breed a Genesis into exclusive, you still get an exclusive, just like you would a legendary. So I know, you know, there's some theories that legendary into Genesis produce better exclusives, and I have seen evidence for that. But if you're a small stable, you know, we're not talking big stables, we're not talking about people coming in and buying 10, 15, 20 horses. You know, I'm talking low-end strategy, how do we trade up? Stuff like this, like, I don't think you can get better deals than this. And not only that, but your opportunity, I think, for variation and what you produce based on what you're breeding with changes quite a bit. Because we don't exactly know how cross-bloodline and multiple generations work yet. You know, there's a lot of people working on it, but this could produce some interesting results. And that's actually what I've seen personally. So, Get Spooked, she climbed straight up to the top of Class 4. I had to downclass her. She won, you know, 2 races right away. Threw in a free race to snag a 3rd win just to keep her 1% up while I classed her down. Heat Lightning, you know, this is Cheek's child. She is born from Purple Palace and Cheeks. Purple Palace, grandson to Billions. Cheeks is a Z11 veteran mare that has Nakamoto blood. So it produced a pretty good horse. You know, she's sitting at 10% win rate with 100, almost 11% win rate with 101 races. I just brought her out of Class 3. She probably couldn't have competed there, but I didn't want to mess around right now because she is in one of the tournaments. So I brought her back down. And she's run like 8 to 10 races in Class 1, so this win rate really should be up over 12, 13%. Mom Thought, who's won races in Class 1, but I just run the hell out of against anything just to kind of see what would happen. He's won my data horses. I probably could get him back up to 10% win rate pretty easily if I stop messing around and stop just throwing in random stuff. But then we have this horse here, you know, paid a .12 for. Her mom, this is the stable review part, so if you don't care about the stable review, you know, thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications so that we can stay up to date with starter stable and everything else we're doing. But I just kind of want to talk about what I've been seeing and what I've been doing. So the mom is Nakamoto and Finney. The dad is a Buterin, which produced this horse here. You know, we bought her for .12. We bred her with a, here we are. So we bred her with another Z10 Genesis. I spent a lot of time researching what I was going to breed in. She, Salati, every single parent is a distance runner, which kind of goes against my full coverage breeding, but full coverage breeding only is meant to produce a better horse one generation. So looking at this, all of her parents and grandparents were all distance runners. Insert delete is a distance runner who has somewhat of a good track record. And I actually bred this horse, raced it in its first 3 races. I had it, after I won the Griffin, I listed it for .15. Forgot I had it listed. Raced it the next day, won. Raced it again the following day at work, won. And as soon as it won its 3rd race, it got snatched up. And then they won again immediately. They've been kind of not doing a very good job managing it. They've been putting in some random races against competition I would not be running it against until I know how strong it is. But needless to say, it's already snagged 7 wins, all paid races in 40 races. Like I'm shooting for 10 wins by 100 races with most of our horses right now. And that just goes to show the potential power of buying exclusive with mixed blood. I think if you're buying the right horses, you do a little bit of research, you know, you can really do some interesting things. And the cool thing is, you know, I was really sad to see him go at .15, especially because the way I found out was I went to enter him into a race and he was already in it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's my horse. Like, did they spell the name right? Is somebody else changed, you know, used my name? And he was already in a whole race, won that race. It was sad for me. But he won $150 in race fees because he was racing in higher entry fee races, which paid off his stud. And then he sold for .15, which I bought his mom for .12, so that paid off mom and made mom profitable immediately. So that's pretty exciting. And then we also have, let's look up Cheeks. So Cheeks produced 2 offsprings. This one here is the first one. So Cheeks Time, this was just kind of a random breed. I knew I had Pie Time in the stud. He's the stronger of the 2 of my lightly raced Genesis because he threw flames 50% of the time over 4 races. And I was like, you know, I want to sell another horse. I want to free up some ETH. So let's just go ahead and breed those 2 together. Because Cheeks, I haven't done a whole lot of deliberate breeding with her yet, but she's throwing some pretty interesting offspring, so the next breed cycle with her is probably going to be intentional. But I ran these 4 races with Cheeks Time, pulled flames 100% of the time through 4 races, sold it. Next owner won a race immediately, reached out to the owner, congratulated them, and they've won 3 first places and 4 second places. And as you see right here, that value is really low. That looks good. And it's a pretty profitable horse for being such a newbie. Once again, though, that's mixed blood, right? So, you know, Cheeks has the Naka blood. If you can get those horses cheap, I think it's worth it. And then Cheeks' other child, unfortunately, is not a winner. I did sell it before I kind of... Or no, you know what? It wasn't Cheeks, it was Heat Lightning. This was another random breed. So once again, I wanted to sell a horse. I had Heat Lightning available for breeding. Pie Time was already in. Pie Time produced a good horse with Cheeks Time. So I was like, why don't we just pump out Elite real quick? Didn't really have high hopes. I raced it 10 times, or no, I've raced all 12 times on Hot Pie myself. And she hasn't produced a win, or he hasn't produced a win, but Mom thought it took, I think, 20 races to get his first win. So 20-25. So I think it's still possible. It doesn't look to be as strong of a horse. So this might be my first true donkey that I've bred. But once again, it wasn't an intentional breed, so that's shame on me. I didn't take my time. I didn't do any research. I just kind of smacked two horses together, and that's what happens when you don't put a lot of time and thought into it. Most of my breeds, I do at least 45 minutes of research before I finalize the stud. So we'll see a little bit of that process too when I breed out in the starter stable. But yeah, like I said, I want to cover a couple things. Because most videos are saying stack up on Genesis Colts and all this, which is fine, but if you have a beater in Genesis Colt, you're probably not going to sell the cover unless it's rare coat, or unless you're in a group of people and they're willing to use your stud because they're not really being picky at the moment, and so that they're going to do you solid. So in order to produce money, you have to have females, and you have to have enough money to buy a female and pay for the stud fee, right? So make sure you take that into account when you're buying more horses, when you're breeding your horses, when you're selling your horses. And what I was saying about horses that don't win. So if we go back to Cheeks Time, Cheeks Time. So I sold this horse for 0.08, which was definitely above the floor at 0.06. And it just flamed 100% of the time. That was all they needed as proof that it was a promising horse. So that's why I say, definitely race your horses, see what you got. Because I wouldn't have sold Nova's horse for 0.15. I originally had him listed for 0.08, and he ended up winning, so I changed the price right away. But yeah, race. I'm a big fan of racing what you have and seeing what you got, because the upside's so much higher than what the potential downside is. So, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Discord will be in the description. I'm always on Twitter. I'm on Discord 20 hours a day. So